You know, you've been around too long when you go into the hotel room and they assign you a handicap room. And even sadder is I needed most of the stuff in it. So I wasn't as unhappy as I thought I was going to be. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today. We have an environmental scanning group of 3 people who do nothing but look at trends in and out of higher education, international, national, and so on, because we firmly believe that you've got to think outside the box, but you've got to know what the box looks like, and that's why we do all this. And we do strategic planning, which we do a fair amount of. We insist that there's a big environmental scan about the region and so on and so forth, so that people can actually say, hey, this is not going to be the way it used to be. And so we get caught up in that whole business. And we also are doing the research for the Chronicle of Higher Education on a series of the College of 2020. The first volume, which you may or may not have seen on the students of 2020, has been out now for 6 months. The next one's coming out is on technology and facilities, and the third is on teaching and learning. I'm going to go through a little of the stuff we have learned to date, and I'm often called the prophet of doom, and I don't mean to be, but it's a problem if you look at enough data, it does get a little scary at times. So, sorry. I think one of the important things, did I go the right way? No, I'm going the wrong way. I'm going the way.
Okay.
You're back up.
Pardon? I know, but I don't know
You
why.
want to go
I'm not.
side to side. Okay, here comes Joe.
What do you do? I don't know why I don't know.
Yeah, it's going the wrong way, isn't it?
No, that made you be, do it again, because that may be a blank slide I put in there on purpose, believe it or not.
Yeah.
This one, right?
How many times? How many times?
Pardon? Yes, please. First thing I want to talk about is who the 2020 is. And they're first graders right now, when they'll be freshmen in college. There's a lot to be said for that, except if you imagine all the technology they're growing up with already, imagine in 18 years when they're, not 18, 13 years when they're ready for college. The second thing I want to show you, if I can make it more, is a quote from, I can't remember his name. Oops. And this guy's a mathematician from many years ago, 1760, I think. And tell me if I'm reading this thing right, it'd be helpful. And basically what he said is what's the foundation of Google. If you think about it, Google bases its stuff on what it already knows in the past and keeps building on that. Well, to do trends, which is what we spend a lot of time on, we look at current trends and then try to predict out. So I'm going to show you some of the trends and I'm going to make some predictions. Try not throwing much. One of the more discouraging pieces of knowledge is the whole issue that high school dropouts have actually increased over the years rather than, and even more discouraging and not surprising, you can see where they are coming from. And what it bothers me is not only are these students coming out unprepared, there are fewer of them coming out, and the students of color who have the greatest need for this kind of education, in my view, are not even graduating from school on a regular, at any time. And this is really sad when you can figure that, this is a little awkward this way, but that we lose 60,000 students a week to a day, really, in terms of dropouts. And that's going to have a major impact on our kinds of schools if it continues. The enrollment shift, as some of you already know, I think most schools like this are going to have to be 30 to 35% students of color by 2020, and we're not there yet in most cases. The other thing is the population of kids going to college, it tends to be, yes, the 18-year-olds numbers are increasing, but the greatest increase is in adult population. And I know you do some of that, but a lot of schools have not spent much time on it as they could. The adult learners, there's going to be a 20% growth in them and an 18% growth in between 2017-16. And that's a huge number when you really get down to it, and it's increasing at very high speeds. Not surprising when you look at who attends college. It's the highest income families are most likely to get through college, and down to 52% of the lower income. However, that 91% of the high income represents only 13% of the families in the United States, and only 10% of those families have kids in college. So you're talking about not a huge number. Yes, they're going to go to college, but yes, they're also not going to fill our colleges. One question everybody gets is willingness to pay, and this came from one of the Chronicle articles, that they really do think it's going to be harder for the second-tier people to get their money. And part of that is they got it from our research. We ask a question when we talk to parents primarily about how important cost is in your decision to choose a college. And about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, 15% said it was the most important function of high-income families. Last time we did it this spring, it was 49% said it was the most important among higher-income families. So that suggests there could be an issue coming up front. Another sad number is the degree completion. When you get down to it, we're 15th among 29 nations in college completion. And the 59% white who actually complete college is amazing when you consider that's the group who most often attends college. Now, one of the other upsetting statistics to me is community colleges, a third of the students go to community college who expect to get a baccalaureate degree. Yet only 25% of that group ever get a baccalaureate degree. So we're losing large numbers of students in the mix before they even get to a four-year institution. That's not mine. Could you take that for me? One thing a lot of schools like to look at is the whole issue of international students. And in many ways, it's a relatively hopeful, apparently hopeful anyway. It's going to grow 2.7% a year, 71% in 20 years, so it's there's going to be more international students. But the, and you can see many of them are choosing the United States. However, the bigger number are choosing Australia and Canada over the United States. It's cheaper, they're more accommodating, they can get into the countries, which is a nice touch too. The other problem is that means the international students in many ways who would look at a place as like yours usually have very high need. They're not coming from the wealthy families. And